can't marry, we're siblings!
Kano, northern Nigeria, February. Samuel had not planned to stay. He was 32 years old, a water infrastructure engineer from Toyama, a mid-sized Japanese city nobody outside Japan had ever heard of, famous for its pharmaceutical industry and its extraordinarily clean tap water, which Samuel appreciated in the way you only appreciate things you have spent years thinking about professionally. He had arrived in Kano on a 3-month contract, a Japanese NGO partnering with the Kano state government to rehabilitate the city's aging water distribution network in the older districts, the ancient labyrinthine quarters of Fage and Gwagwarwa, where pipes installed in the 1960s had spent decades slowly surrendering to pressure and rust. 3 months, that was the plan. He had been here 11 months. He told himself it was the project. The project was genuinely complex political complications, supply chain failures, a subcontractor who had disappeared with half the budget in June and been replaced with someone only marginally less unreliable. These were real reasons to stay. He believed them completely until the Wednesday in March when Precious walked into the small buka near the project office and sat 2 tables away from him and ordered pepper soup in Hausa with a southern accent, and he understood that he had been staying for a reason he hadn't yet met. He did not speak to her that day. He was not that kind of man. He ate his food. He left. He thought about her for the rest of the afternoon in a way that interfered seriously with his pipe pressure calculations. He went back the next Wednesday. She was there. Her name, he learned eventually, was Precious Adeyes Okonkwo, 27 years old, an NYSC Corps member from Enugu, posted to a public health facility in Kano's Nasarawa district, where she worked 14-hour days vaccinating children and arguing with procurement officers about expired supplies. She had a degree in public health from the University of Nigeria and opinions about everything: the state of Nigerian federalism, the superiority of Igbo pepper soup over all other regional variants, the cinematography of Wong Kar-wai, the specific moral failures of people who don't return shopping carts. She was the most alive person Samuel had ever been near. They met properly on the 3rd Wednesday. She knocked over her water bottle reaching for her phone, and it rolled directly under his table, and he picked it up and handed it to her. And she looked at him the way people look at things they're already deciding to keep. "You've been here every Wednesday," she said, not accusatory, just observant. "The pepper soup," he said. She looked at the plate in front of him. "You've ordered the same thing every time." He had not realized she had noticed him. The realization rearranged something in his chest. "It's a good thing," he said carefully, "to find what you like and return to it." She looked at him for a moment with those dark, precise eyes. Then she said, "Sit here then, if you're coming back anyway." He sat. He did not leave for 6 hours. She talked the way rivers move continuously, with direction, occasionally breaking into unexpected channels. She told him about her patients, the young mothers who walked 4 kilometers to the clinic carrying infants on their backs and groceries on their heads and still arrived smiling. The elderly man who refused injections but could be persuaded with enough quiet dignity. The children who screamed until the needle was done and then immediately asked for another sweet with complete emotional recovery. He told her about water, about the pipes under Kano that were older than Nigerian independence, about the engineering philosophy that the best infrastructure is the kind no one notices, that success, in his field, looked like nothing happening. "That's lonely work," she said. Nobody had ever said that to him. "Yes," he said, "it is." She looked at him with something that was not yet sympathy but was close to it. "At least the water notices." He laughed. He laughed more in that first conversation than he had in the previous 3 months combined, and Kano was not a city short on things to laugh about. By the time they left the buka, the rain had started, that sudden, committed Nigerian rain that doesn't warn you, and they stood under the narrow overhang of the entrance, shoulders nearly touching, watching the street turn to river, and Samuel thought, "I am not going home for a very long time." Kano is a city of contradictions, so beautiful they stop being contradictions. Ancient mud walls and modern phone shops, the call to prayer floating over traffic jams, the smell of suya smoke mixing with harmattan dust, the extraordinary hospitality of strangers, the fierce privacy of families, the layered complexity of a city that has been a center of trade and scholarship for 1,000 years and knows it. Samuel fell in love with the city the way he fell in love with Precious, gradually and then entirely. Their relationship built itself in the texture of Kano life. He took her to see the Kofar Mata dye pits, ancient, still working, the cloth emerging from the indigo vats in colors that deepened as they dried in the afternoon sun. She stood at the edge and was quiet for a long time, which he had learned was her way of receiving things that moved her. "My grandmother used to wear fabric this color," she said finally. "I never knew where the color came from." "From here," he said. "From people doing this exact thing for 500 years. She looked at him sideways. "You researched the city." "I research everything." "Why?" He thought about it. "Because a place deserves to be known." She was quiet again. Then, "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone more closed." She said it carefully, not as criticism. "Most people who come here from elsewhere, they move through the city like it's a backdrop. You actually look at it." "I look at you too," he said. It was the most forward thing he had ever said to anyone in his life. He felt his own heartbeat in his ears. Precious looked at him for a long moment. The indigo vats turned slowly below them. "I know," she said quietly. "I've been letting you." 3 months into whatever they were, they had not named it, both of them instinctively careful with words. Preferring the evidence of action, something happened that became one of the stories they would tell later in better times. Samuel had arranged to meet Precious at her clinic after work. He arrived early and sat in the waiting area, which was crowded, noisy, and held together by the particular energy of overworked people committed to their work anyway. He watched Precious move through the room speaking to a young mother whose baby would not stop crying, crouching to speak to the baby directly in a mix of Igbo and Hausa baby talk that made no linguistic sense but worked completely, handing a chart to a colleague while simultaneously answering a question from someone else. She had not seen him yet. He watched her for 4 minutes before she looked up and found him in the crowd. Something changed in her face. Not dramatically, just softened, like a room where someone turned a light on. She held up 4 fingers. 4 minutes. He nodded. He would have waited 4 hours. He thought she probably knew that. When she came out, she sat next to him and said, without preamble, "There was a child today, 3 years old. She came in with her mother for a routine vaccination. The mother was coughing. I ran a test. It was TB." She paused. "I referred them. Got her onto the right protocol. But there will be nights when I think about whether I caught it in time." He sat with that. "You did today," he said. "That's the day that exists." She looked at him. "You're a very practical person." "I'm an engineer." She almost smiled. Engineers and their solutions. "Do you want a solution, or do you want to be heard?" She paused. "Both," she said, "in that order." He nodded. "Then first, I hear you. The work is heavy, and you carry it carefully, and that matters enormously. A beat. Second, you caught it. You caught it today." She exhaled. "Okay," she said. "Okay." He reached over and took her hand. She let him. It was the first time they had held hands, and neither of them commented on it, and they sat there together in the noisy clinic waiting area as the afternoon darkened outside, and it was one of the most intimate moments of Samuel's life. By month 5, she had met his colleague Robert, a fellow engineer from Lagos, who had been Samuel's closest friend since the project started. Robert was loud, generous, and said exactly what he thought at all times, which was both his best and most dangerous quality. He pulled Samuel aside after their first dinner together and said, "She's extraordinary." "I know. She looks at you like you're a problem she's decided to solve." Samuel considered this. "Is that a good thing?" "From her," Robert said. "That's the highest thing." Precious had also met Daniel, her fellow core member and closest friend, in Kano. a skinny young man from Delta State who spoke 6 languages, carried a novel everywhere, and had a series of extremely strong opinions about Nigerian literature that he shared whether or not anyone had asked. Daniel had watched Samuel carefully across the dinner table and afterward texted Precious a single message. He listens when you talk. Not waiting to respond listens. Actually listens. Keep him. Precious had shown Samuel the message, which was either an act of tremendous trust or tremendous mischief, possibly both. In June, 2 things happened. The first, Samuel's contract was extended again, this time for a full year. The second water rehabilitation phase had been approved, larger in scope, and the NGO wanted continuity. He signed the extension without discussing it with anyone except Robert, who said, "You weren't going to leave anyway," and was not wrong. The second, Precious told him about her family. They were in his apartment, a spare, functional space that had slowly accumulated evidence of her. A wrapper draped over the back of a chair, a bottle of palm kernel oil in the kitchen that he had never bought, a book of hers on his bedside table that he had started reading because it was there and hadn't been able to stop. "My father's name is Emeka Okonkwo," she said. She was sitting cross-legged on his floor. She liked the floor, she had explained once, because it was harder to fall asleep accidentally on the floor, which meant she actually finished her thoughts. "He's not my biological father. He adopted me when I was 4. My mother was already with him, already pregnant with my brother, and he took me as his first child without," she paused, "without ever making me feel like a second thought." Samuel waited. "My biological father," she said carefully, "was a Japanese man. He had not known this. He stilled. My mother met him in Japan, a long time ago, before I was born." She said this in the tone of someone delivering information they have rehearsed and still find difficult. She didn't speak about it often. Only enough for me to understand that something had happened, that he had made a choice, that she had made her own choice, and that choice was to bring me home and build something good. She looked at her hands. She succeeded. "Your mother sounds remarkable," Samuel said. "She is." Present tense. Her mother was alive, he knew that. Had heard about her in many fragments. A fierce, private woman in Enugu who sent Precious care packages full of dried fish and unsolicited opinions about Precious's life choices. "Does she know about me?" he asked. Precious smiled slightly. "She knows there's a Japanese man in Kano." "What did she say?" She said, "That's all?" With my mother, contains multitudes. She looked at him. "She'll want to know more. Eventually. When I tell her there's more to know." He understood what she was saying. He felt the weight of it and didn't look away from it. "When you're ready," he said, "tell her everything." She studied him. "Are you afraid?" "No." He meant it. "I'm aware. There's a difference." The proposal, August, came like a held breath released. The project was going well, better than projected, the kind of progress that makes bureaucrats suddenly interested and politicians suddenly present at site visits they had previously ignored. Samuel was busy, stretched, satisfied. He had built something real. Water was moving through pipes that had been dry for a decade. Children in Gwagwarwa were drinking clean water. He thought, "This is what I came here to do." He thought also, "She is part of what this place has given me. The largest part." He bought the ring in Kano's Tuesday market. A modest, beautiful thing. A single stone, set in warm gold, chosen from a trader who spread his collection on a cloth with the quiet confidence of someone who knew his work was good. Samuel spent an hour. The trader was patient. When Samuel finally pointed, the trader nodded once and said, "Good choice. This one has dignity," he told Robert that evening. Robert sat down on Samuel's kitchen floor, also a floor sitter. The two of them had spent many evenings sitting on kitchen floors, solving project crises, and said nothing for 30 seconds. Then, "You're sure?"
"I've been sure since March."
"You've been sure since the first Wednesday," Robert said. "Don't minimize it." He looked at the ring box in Samuel's hand. "She's going to say yes." "I know. Then why do you look like that?" Samuel thought about it. Because yes is the beginning of something, and beginnings are serious. Robert was quiet. Then, with the careful weight of a man saying something true, she will be good to you, and you will be good to her. I've seen enough of both of you to know that. He paused. Also, if you don't propose soon, Daniel will start workshopping proposals on your behalf, and that man will write you something 7 pages long with 3 literary epigraphs. Samuel laughed. He means well. Daniel always means well. That's what makes him dangerous. He proposed on a Tuesday, at the buka. At the same table where they had first spoken. Same corrugated roof, different rain, the whole city humming its normal, impossible song outside. He had ordered pepper soup for both of them. He waited until she had taken 2 sips, because he had learned that Precious was at her most present after the first 2 sips of pepper soup. Then, he took the box from his pocket and placed it on the table between them. She looked at it. She looked at him. "Samuel," she said, "I know we haven't been together long by some people's calculations," he said. "I also know that length is not the same thing as depth, and I know what this is." He touched the box lightly. "I know what you are to me. I know the kind of life I want, and I know you are the center of it. I'm not asking because I'm afraid of the alternative. I'm asking because there is no version of forward that doesn't have you in it." She was crying. He had never seen her cry before. It changed her face in a way that made her more herself, not less. "You rehearsed that," she said. "Twice," he admitted. Robert helped. She laughed through her tears, a full, breaking laugh. She opened the box. She looked at the ring for a long time. "Yes," she said. "Obviously yes. Since March, Samuel." He breathed. "Since the first Wednesday," he corrected. She looked up at him. Her eyes were shining. "Since the first Wednesday," she agreed. The wedding was set for November, 4 months away. Precious's mother, Ngozi, came to Kano in September to meet Samuel. He had been nervous in a way he hadn't been nervous since university. The low, persistent nervousness of high stakes. Robert had advised him to be quiet, honest, and to compliment the food. Daniel had given him a 3-page document titled Understanding Igbo Matriarchal Dynamics, a practical guide which Samuel had read with complete seriousness and filed carefully. Ngozi Okonkwo arrived on a Thursday afternoon. She was a small woman with the posture of someone much larger, the commanding stillness of a person who has learned that presence doesn't require volume. She wore a blue wrapper with gold trim and carried a bag from which she immediately began producing things: dried stockfish, crayfish, a bottle of palm wine, and 3 types of spice that she set on Samuel's kitchen counter and surveyed with professional skepticism. She did not speak to him directly for the first 40 minutes. She spoke to Precious. Samuel served tea and was quiet. Then she turned to him. "You are from which city?" she said. Her English was careful, formal, fully precise. "Toyama," he said. "In Japan, Honshu Island. That famous sound. Your parents. My mother is living. Her name is Yuki. My father passed 8 years ago. His name was Hiroshi." Something happened in Ngozi's face, a flicker so fast he wasn't sure he'd seen it. Her eyes moved to Precious, then back to him. "Hiroshi," she repeated. "Yes. What did your father do?" "He was an engineer. Infrastructure. He worked for a—" "How old was he when he died?" Her voice had shifted, still controlled, but different. Samuel paused. 56. "Why?" Ngozi set down her cup with a precision that felt like a decision being made. "I need to use your bathroom," she said. She was in there for 11 minutes. Samuel counted without meaning to. Precious looked at him, then at the bathroom door, and her expression was a question he couldn't answer. When Ngozi came out, her eyes were dry, and her posture was the same. She sat down. She picked up her cup. "Your pepper soup," she said, nodding at the pot on the stove. "Needs more uziza leaf. Nothing else." For the rest of the evening, she was warm, present, entirely herself. She told stories about Precious as a child, the fearless, opinionated, unstoppable child she had been, who had once argued with her primary school teacher for 45 minutes about whether the sun was a star and been sent home with a note and been entirely correct. She accepted Samuel without performance, without interrogation, just watched him with those precise eyes, and saw, he felt, everything. Before she left, she hugged him, short, firm. She said quietly, near his ear, "Take care of her." "I will," he said. She pulled back and looked at him for one long moment. He couldn't read what was in her face. She left. He stood in the doorway of his apartment long after her car had gone, and something he couldn't name sat behind his sternum like a splinter he couldn't reach. The letter arrived on a Thursday in October, 3 weeks before the wedding. It came addressed to Precious, from an address in Enugu he didn't recognize. Precious's name was written in her mother's handwriting. He knew Ngozi's handwriting from the care package labels. Below Precious's name, in smaller letters, were 3 words: "Read alone first." He was at work when it arrived. The house girl had signed for it, placed it on the kitchen table. He saw it when he came home for lunch. Alone, Precious was at the clinic. He did not open it. He set it exactly where it was, ate his food, and went back to work. Precious called him at 4 p.m. Her voice was strange, flattened in a way he associated with shock rather than sadness, the voice of someone standing very still while the world moves. "Are you coming home?" she said. "Now," he said. She was sitting on the floor when he arrived. Both letters were in front of her, the one from her mother, and another, older one, paper yellowed at the folds. She looked up at him when he came in. Her eyes were dry, which somehow made it worse. "Sit down, Samuel," she said. He sat. "My mother wrote me a letter," she said. And with it she sent a letter that she received in 1991. She picked up the older letter from a man named Hiroshi Nakamura, who was at that time engaged to be married to a woman named Yuki Fujiwara. The room performed a slow rotation. "My mother was a nursing student in Toyama," Precious said. Her voice was perfectly steady in the way of something that will not be steady for much longer. She met him in 1989. They were together for almost 2 years. When she became pregnant, he told her he couldn't leave his fiancée, that his family, his obligations, the life he had already arranged, he told her he was sorry. She set the letter down. She came home. She had me. She met my father, my real father, Emeka, and she built the life she built. A pause. She never told me this letter existed. She never told me his full name. I only ever knew Hiroshi in Japan, and that he was an engineer. Samuel was very still. "Your father's name," she said, "was Hiroshi Nakamura." "Yes." "Your mother's name, before marriage, was Yuki Fujiwara." He couldn't find his voice. "Samuel," she looked at him with those eyes that had always seen clearly. "Tell me I'm wrong." He picked up the old letter, read it. Hiroshi's handwriting. He knew his father's handwriting, had seen it on birthday cards, on engineering notebooks, on the dedication page of a book his father had given him at university. He knew it the way you know breathing. It was his father's handwriting. "You're not wrong," he said. The sound Precious made then was not a cry. It was something underneath crying, the sound of the ground shifting. Chapter 5. The Epicenter. What followed was the worst night of Samuel's life. Not because of anger. Neither of them had anger, which in some ways was harder than anger would have been. Anger has direction. What they had was shapeless and enormous, and sat in the room like a third presence. She called Daniel at midnight. Samuel heard her voice through the wall, that controlled, stripped-down voice of extreme crisis, and then silence. And then Daniel arrived in 22 minutes in a Danfo that he had apparently bribed to run at midnight, which was either a testament to Daniel's resourcefulness or to the negotiability of Kano's nocturnal transport sector. Daniel sat with Precious in the living room. Samuel sat in the kitchen. Robert arrived an hour later. Samuel had called him without fully deciding to, the call happening before the decision. Robert sat down across from Samuel at the kitchen table and looked at him for a long time. "Tell me," Robert said. Samuel told him. Robert was quiet for so long that the kitchen clock was suddenly audible. Then, "Your father." Yes. And her mother. Yes. Robert pressed his hands flat on the table. He was a big man, broad, steady, and he used that steadiness now, anchoring the room. Okay, he said. Okay, let's be very slow and very careful. Robert. Slow, Robert repeated, and careful. He looked at Samuel. First, how are you? The question hit Samuel somewhere unexpected. He had been so focused on what this meant, what it changed, what it cost, that he had not asked himself this. How was he? I don't know, he said honestly. That's the right answer, Robert said. Don't pretend to know yet. From the living room, he could hear Daniel's voice, low, continuous, the sound of a very good friend talking someone through something that cannot be talked through but must be witnessed anyway. The wedding, Samuel said. Not tonight, Robert said. Don't solve the wedding tonight. 3 weeks, Robert. I know. Tonight is not for solving. Tonight is for surviving. He reached across the table and gripped Samuel's shoulder once, firmly. You are both going to survive tonight. Tomorrow you'll figure out what comes after. Precious came to the kitchen at 2 a.m. Daniel stayed in the living room. She sat down across from Samuel. They looked at each other across the table in the thin light. I need to call my mother, she said. I know. Not tonight. I know. She looked at her hands. I keep trying to think about what I feel, and I keep arriving at the same problem. I feel too many things at once, and they contradict each other. She paused. I'm not angry at you. I'm not angry at you. I know that. She looked up. That's almost what makes it harder. There's no one to be angry at. Your father is dead. My mother made the choices she made, and they were good choices. She gave me a good life. And she stopped. We didn't know, he said. We didn't know, she said it again, as if testing whether the repetition would help. It didn't seem to. Samuel, what do we do? He looked at her across the table, this woman he had loved, since March, since a rainy Wednesday, since the first moment she looked at him and decided he was worth looking at. He looked at her, and he understood that whatever they decided, whatever they became or did not become, the love was real. It had always been real. That was the part nothing could touch. I don't know yet, he said, but we decide together. Whatever it is, we decide together. She nodded. Once. Slowly. Okay, she said. Together. Chapter 6. Ngozi speaks. Precious called her mother the next morning. Samuel was in the room Precious had asked him to stay. He sat in the corner quietly, present, letting her lead. Ngozi answered on the second ring. You read it, Ngozi said. No greeting. Mama. Precious's voice cracked on the word, then recovered. Why now? Why this way? A long silence. When Ngozi spoke, her voice was different than Samuel had ever heard it, stripped of its careful architecture, older, more tired. Because when I met him, she said, I looked at him for a long time, and I saw Hiroshi. Not his face, his hands. His hands and the way he goes quiet when he's thinking. Your father had that same stillness. She paused. And I was afraid. I was afraid to speak and afraid to stay silent. And in the end, I thought she deserves to know. She deserves to know before she stands in front of a priest. You should have told me years ago, Precious said. Her voice was controlled and devastating. Yes, Ngozi said simply. I should have. I was protecting you. I was protecting myself. I was wrong to do it that way, and I am not going to insult you by defending it. A beat. I am sorry, 8As. I am truly sorry. Precious was silent for a long time. Samuel watched her from the corner of the room, the way she held herself, the way she breathed, the way she was both daughter and woman in the same moment, navigating two relationships simultaneously. Is there anything else? Precious said finally. Is there anything else I don't know? No, Ngozi said. There is nothing else. You know everything now. Good. Precious looked across the room at Samuel. He held her gaze. Because I need to know everything. I can only work with the truth. I know, Ngozi said. "You've always been that way. From when you were small, you always needed the true thing." "I got that from you," Precious said. And it was not a compliment or an accusation. It was just a fact, delivered with the steady, unflinching honesty of a woman who was going to be fine not immediately, not without cost, but ultimately and truly fine. Chapter 7. After the ground moves. The wedding was postponed. Not canceled, postponed. This distinction mattered to both of them, and they made it carefully, deliberately, because words matter most when everything is fragile. They told their guests there had been a family situation requiring time. Robert and Daniel handled most of the calls. Samuel's mother Yuki in Toyama received a version of the situation that was mostly true and delivered with extreme care. Yuki was quiet for a very long time on the phone. Then she said, in Japanese, "I did not know she had a child. I did not know. Your father never." She stopped. "I am sorry, Samuel. I am sorry for the part of this that was his." It was the closest thing to a confession the Nakamura family had ever produced about that chapter of Hiroshi's life. Samuel accepted it. He and Precious moved through the following weeks in a way that defied easy description. They did not separate. Neither of them wanted to separate, and they were both honest enough to stop pretending otherwise. But they also could not move forward without processing what lay between them, the biological fact, the complex, layered implication of what they were to each other. They found a counselor in Kano, a quietly excellent woman named Dr. Amara, who specialized in trauma and complex family dynamics. She was Yoruba, her office walls covered in batik prints, and she listened to both of them across 3 sessions with the focused stillness of someone who had heard extraordinary things and could hold them without flinching. In their second session, Dr. Amara said something Samuel wrote down afterward and looked at many times. "The love you have for each other is real. The complication is also real. Both things are true at the same time, and neither of them cancels the other out. What you are deciding is not whether you were wrong to love you or not. What you are deciding is what shape love takes going forward in this new truth." He showed the note to Precious. She read it twice. "She's right," Precious said. "I know," he said. They decided in November, sitting on his kitchen floor, both of them, because Precious had converted him to floor sitting somewhere around month 3 and he had never recovered. Robert and Daniel were in the living room, because by this point Robert and Daniel had essentially become furniture in the story of Samuel and Precious, permanent witnesses, the kind of friends who show up and stay. "I can't marry you," Precious said. She said it plainly, not cruelly. "Not because I don't love you. I do. I probably always will. But I cannot stand at an altar and say vows with this between us and feel clean about it. I can't do that to myself, and I can't do that to you." "I know," Samuel said. "You agree." "I've known for 3 weeks." He looked at her. "I kept hoping I'd arrive at a different answer." "So did I," she exhaled. "I kept thinking, is this enough reason? Is biology enough reason? People decide harder things than this." "Yes," he said, "but we're the ones who have to live in the decision. And I think you and we both need to be able to look at our lives directly, without avoidance." She nodded. "We're too similar in that way." "We probably got it from the same place," he said quietly. It was the first time either of them had acknowledged, with any lightness at all, the reality of their shared blood. It was such a small lightness, but it was real. Precious almost smiled. Then she did smile, brief, genuine, the smile of someone who finds the precise absurdity in the exact middle of devastation, which he had always loved most about her. "Samuel," she said. "Yes, you were the best thing that happened to me in Kano." He looked at her for a long time. The kitchen light was warm. Outside, the city was doing what Kano does, making its irreducible noise, living its layered life. Entirely indifferent to the small, enormous things happening inside the apartments stacked above its ancient streets. "You were the best thing that happened to me anywhere," he said. "I want you to know this. I don't regret a single Wednesday. I don't regret March, or the ring, or the 4 hours on my kitchen floor in November. I regret the circumstances that made it impossible. That is a different thing. You once told me that your father Emeka gave you his name and his love without condition and never made you feel like a second thought. I think that's the truest thing I've ever heard about what a parent owes a child. I hope you find someone who loves you the way you deserve, which is completely, clearly, without complication. You have always deserved the uncomplicated thing. Your brother, in the way that matters, Samuel. Her reply came 3 days later. 4 lines. I got your letter. Thank you for writing. I have a brother now. That's not nothing, precious. He read it standing at his kitchen window in Toyama. The Tateyama Mountains were visible today, clean white peaks above the city, old as patience, indifferent to the small human dramas unfolding in the apartments and offices and kitchens arranged at their feet. He thought, some losses make you larger, not immediately, not without cost, but eventually, if you let them larger. He folded her letter, placed it in the drawer with the photograph of his father young, laughing, standing in a garden in a city he had since identified as Toyama 35 years ago, before the choices were made that would ripple forward into lives he never knew. He thought about Kano, about pepper soup on a rainy Wednesday, about the Kofar Mata dye pits and the indigo cloth emerging from the vats and Precious standing at the edge of it saying, "My grandmother used to wear fabric this color," about the specific grace of people who carry difficult things carefully. He put on his coat. He went to work. The pipes were clean. The water was flowing. It was enough. Some stories don't end with happily ever after. Some end with something quieter and somehow heavier. Samuel and Precious did everything right. They loved honestly. They chose carefully. They faced the truth when it would have been easier to look away. And still, they had to let each other go. Not because the love wasn't real, but because sometimes love alone is not enough to build a life on. Months later, the world keeps moving. Water still flows through Kano. Children still laugh in clinic waiting rooms. Life, as it always does, continues without asking for permission. But somewhere, in 2 different cities, 2 people carry the same memory. A rainy Wednesday, a shared table, a love that was right and still impossible. Now let me ask you something. If you were in their place, would you have gone ahead with the marriage anyway? Do you think love should overcome everything, even something like this? Or did they make the only decision they could live with? And one more question. Is it better to lose the person you love or live with a truth you can't escape?